Welcome, everyone. Give us a few minutes before we start. Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to our Saturday Dharma talk and meditation once again. I'd like to welcome Venerable De Hong for joining us once again. It's changing to a new schedule, every first and third Wednesdays evening of the Tuesday evening of the week. At 6 p.m. Pacific time. So I'll quickly turn it over to Venerable De Hong now.
Thank you, Danny. Good evening, everyone. So let me share a PowerPoint. So this is a continuation from 2 weeks ago. So for those of us who suffer from the dukkha that the Buddha was talking about, basically in the first Noble Truth, be it death, sickness, aging, birth, separation from loved ones, dealing with people we don't like and we couldn't have what we want. And then along with that, there are other things. So I decided to call it dukkha and dissociation because whatever trauma or stress that we suffer from, most of us, we didn't even realize that. And we continue to go on about our lives. But then, our childhood trauma or our stress, when they are not addressed or processed, they affect all aspects of our lives, of our relationships. So that's the reason that I choose this topic as a continuation of the First Noble Truth. I won't do the slideshow because it would cut off part of my slide. So I'll just do, share the screens, one at a time, if that's okay with you guys. So basically, as I said a bit earlier, people suffer from childhood trauma or relationship trauma. They kind of like put all of those aside and they continue to live their lives. The thing is, I call this, unhealed wound. This unhealed wound would affect our thinking and our behavior, which in turn would affect all aspects of our lives and definitely our relationships. So we carry all this wound, all this trauma around us. And we didn't even realize that. There is a book by Dr. Sandra Wilson. It's called Hurt People, Hurt People. What it means is that people who carry unhealed emotional pain, trauma, or abuse often pass that suffering on to others. So let's say someone suffering from childhood trauma, he or she go on, they could even graduate from college or even having a master or PhD. The issue is, let's say they go into an intimate relationship, and that's where the problem would arise. I have seen this quite a bit in my personal experience, but I'm sure you guys would know certain individuals with the same issue. Now, people who suffer from trauma or stress and heal from it, and when they're able to help others, they are called wounded healers, and it's a term that was coined by Carl Jung. I spoke to a therapist a couple times 3 years ago, telling him about my life experience, and he basically called me a wounded healer. So the reason that I bring the childhood trauma up, because there was a study. This is a stats from the CDC that was updated on March 2nd, 2026. And it said basically 3 in 4 high school students report at least one or more adverse childhood experiences. And 1 in 5 experienced 4 or more adverse childhood experiences. And this is a major issue in modern society now. So I don't know what. I mean, this is a major concern, because most of the people that I work with inside the prison, and even those that I didn't work with, the majority of them, 90% of them, suffer at least 2 or more ACEs. So as you guys can see, ACEs are common among high school students. The ones that were common were emotional abuse, physical abuse, living in a household with a parent suffering from mental health or substance use. And the thing is, because ACEs have a lasting effects on our physical and mental health, even into adulthood. This can include risk of injuries, sexually transmitted disease, and also sex trafficking, physical health, terminal illness, basically, or cancer in terms of long-term cases. It can also cause problem for mothers who are giving birth to child. And this is because, a lot of girls suffering from ACEs, they ran away from home, they got pregnant, and that complicated their pregnancy. Other issues are chronic disease that would lead to death, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, and suicide. And I have at least 3 cases that I can share with you guys. One lady, she said on July 27 that back then, before she was incarcerated, if she knew how to seek help, she wouldn't be there. And that sounds very, very familiar with a lot of people inside the prison. Another lady told me that she is serving a 10-year sentence. She used to live in New York. She was here visiting. I'm not sure what she did. I never asked. And she just turned 70, so she has been in prison for 5 years. She should be released she served a determined sentence basically. So she should be going home at the age of 75, which is 5 years from now. She has an apartment that her son is living there and paying rent. I have another gentleman who got into prison when he was back in 2024, and he is now 54 years old. He said that he was raised by his uncle who physically beat him, and that his uncle was also incarcerated at one point. My point in sharing this is that with people who suffer trauma and they go on into their lives, and if they're not careful, chances are they would end up in prison. And prisons are hell. I say do anything you can to not get into prison. So with trauma, there are indications that we should know. So I'm showing something from WebMD about something called fight, flight, and freeze. I think most of you must have heard of it. There's also a new category called fawn. So basically, when we are triggered or when we are in danger, we could fight back. We get agitated, or we could run away. And as you see in the graph here, it says sympathetic nervous system. When we get angry, it triggers our sympathetic nervous system. That's right. In each meditation, I have you guys just focus on the breath for a couple minutes. But on your own, I would recommend do it a few times a day. Even just sit and breathe for half an hour, because it can help ease your sympathetic nervous system. The other category is called freeze, meaning that when we get triggered, we freeze, we couldn't even move. And the fourth category that I just learned of, I think this is fairly new, is called fawn, FAWN. Basically, traumatized individuals or stressed individuals, they try to avoid conflict, they try to please people, and they couldn't say no. The other image that I am showing here is that when we suffer from unprocessed trauma or even current trauma, a lot of times we stay in that window of tolerance, meaning that we are able to function normally, but when we get triggered, we either get to the hyper arousal zone, which is the one in red, meaning that we get anxious, we get angry, we lose control. The other scenario is that when we freeze, then we get into the hypoarousal zone. We couldn't move, we couldn't talk, our body shuts down. So for those of you who have these sort of experiences, I would recommend that you seek help and get it addressed and process, and you can heal from it. The other study that I'm posting here that has to do with dissociation, and it has to do with our brain activity. It was done by McLean University, published in November 2022. Dissociation disorder, they call it DID. A lot of times, they're not diagnosed or they misdiagnosed. And the problem is that it prevented people from accessing appropriate or effective treatment, causing prolonged suffering and other issues. And it affects women more than it does men. And also from the study basically said that they found that dissociation common to PTSD and dissociation central to DID are linked to unique brain signatures. So basically, the what is it? Dr. Melissa Kaufman advised that people seek help from their doctor just so that they could receive appropriate treatment. So that's that. Now, my past issues from my childhood trauma is that growing up, I had very low esteem. I never had confidence in myself. I always felt there was something wrong with me just because my dad always called me a loser. Who the hell do you think you are? Such and such. But when I was in Cleveland, I did pretty well academically. And I always try to please people. That's the one thing that I noticed, because I want people to like me. And the other symptoms or behavior that I had was that after I graduated from college, I had a pretty good job. I saved money. One thing that I did was I would buy designer clothing, from Calvin Klein, what is it? Versace, D&G, Tommy Hilfiger. I literally bought a $100 shirt, a $200 jean, $150 belt, and I easily spent at least $100 on a pair of shoes. And because I wanted to dress up and receive compliments from people, even from people at work or my friends that I hung out. I used to go to karaoke, and it was always loud as well because now I didn't know why I did it at the time, but now thinking back or for the past few years, I was seeking attention, seeking compliments. So those were my behaviors. Those were the symptoms that I show because of my childhood trauma. So for you guys, as you look at yourself, think back if you had any unaddressed trauma or if you are currently experiencing any major stress, be it at home, be it at work. And then if that's the case, then, how do you treat yourself? Do you have those negative self-talks like I hate myself and you suffer because of your karma? Never blame on karma. Karma means action, and never blame it on past life, especially the Asians. We have a tendency to blame everything on past life, or we blame it on feng shui. To me, it's ridiculous. It's kind of ignorant. So don't do that. Or if you hold judgment against yourself and others. So these are the behaviors of people suffering from childhood trauma or current major stress. Then ask yourself how are your relationships at home, your parents or siblings, or if you have kids, with your spouse or with your co-workers. And then how is your physical health, your psychological and mental health, because they are linked together. So take some time to reflect on that. So I want to continue with Dr. Mark Epstein's book on Chapter 5, Dissociations, because this is all related. He basically, we dissociate our wound, our trauma, because ourselves broken up, we withdrew and we couldn't, especially for kids, they didn't know, they didn't understand, they were confused, and they didn't know how to process them. So this self is sacrificed. So the trauma experiences got pushed, he said, to its room, but in my view, it's into our unconscious mind, for endless time out, and it's split off, shut away, silenced. Just because, we have to go on, so we have to cut our wound our emotional wound, cut it off to go on with our life, because that's how we survive. That's our ego defense, and also to avoid falling apart. And if you look at all the political, all the wars in the world right now, the people in Ukraine, right? Even people in Russia, people in Gaza, Africa, Haiti, all the war-torn country, people who live there right now, they suffer. They suffer trauma, and they have to dissociate everything because they have to go on. And that's exactly what Dr. Mark Epstein, talks about in this chapter. So the problem is that when, even though we push our hurt, our wound into our unconscious mind, they do not disappear. They will show up or manifest in other ways. They always look in the background and explore and digest, and our egos expend enormous energy, keeping them at bay or pushing them out. And here's the key: mindful awareness is the antidote to dissociation. And also, Dr. Basil van der Kolk, in case if you haven't read his book, The Body Keeps a Score, I highly recommend you guys get it and read it. You could read it in a week. I read it 3 times. I'm still finding new material just because of the population that I work with. And he said, mindfulness is the direct practice to address and heal from trauma. Mindfulness doesn't mean just meditation. It means that you need to be mindful in everything that you do in your waking hours. So again, we have to go on, so we dissociate everything. We don't have time to reflect. And the thing is, the self here is immortalized and is not in our view. And also our emotions got stuck. We don't show also our emotion, or we wouldn't express them because we don't feel comfortable. So basically, our trauma was never addressed, imagined, processed, or felt. And just as Dr. Harvey Swart said, the mind flees its own subjectivity in order to evacuate its pain. No matter how it is, we couldn't break free. And it's also impossible to be in the present moment. Why? Because our brain is constantly seeking safety. Our body does not feel safe. That's the key. And so he said, basically, when therapist writes about trapped in one's internal object world, that's the key here. Also, the trauma, the shock of trauma, sits outside of our awareness. Is like a coil spring. You never know when it's sprung up. Our self is also restricted in so many ways, and sometimes our defense, split this so-called self into incompatible states. And that's the price that we pay. In order for us to move on, and it's an obstacle for us to develop any kind of resilience. One consequence is that it depleted our emotional depth and fluidity. It also shows its signature not by disavowing aspects of mental contents per se, but through the traumatized individual's alienation from aspects of the self that are inconsistent with his or her experience of me at any given moment. Mark Epstein also, in this chapter, he discussed much of the Buddha's childhood trauma when he was an infant because his mom passed away uh, after he was born 7 days. So he attained enlightenment, but he also had to face his own uh, childhood trauma. I'm referring to the Buddha. So basically, the Buddha said the nature of life is bliss, but this bliss is too obscure by our habitual misconceptions. And it's this egocentric life, that is conditioned by conceit, that needs a self to be built up and protected and separated out. And in its own version of dissociation from the rest of the universe. So basically, suffering was not irredeemable, but it's dependent not only the way things are, but the way we think and react. But bliss is understood as an expression of compassionate connection that binds us the way a mother is naturally connected to her baby. So what is compassionate connection? Meaning that when we reflect when we meditate and reflect, we find that the connection in all human beings is that we are subject to aging, to major illnesses, to death. And because of that, we give rise to compassion. And that is what he meant by compassionate connection. And the Buddha also stated that we all have this boundless compassion inherent in each one of us, meaning we all have the Buddha nature. And mindfulness meditation is a non-judgmental way attending to our thoughts and feelings. Sometimes listening to sounds, it can be a practice for listening to our feelings. We look for your reactions or responses to sound. And mindfulness helps us to manage our daily life, be it unpredictable, chaotic, inconvenient, and emerging on its own way and its own schedule. And here's the thing, right? Let's say a few years ago, I was driving to visit a prison, and on highway, somebody totaled my SUV. Right there, it was unpredictable, it was inconvenient, it was traumatic. And the thing is, this is why mindfulness help us to prepare. I was calmly call 911. I called my friend, I called my sister, and her husband came to pick me up. The guy who hit me, he did not even apologize. I was irritated later on, but then I let it go because, he's going to deal with his issues. So always prepare for anything. And our emotional life can be part of our meditation practice. And so basically meditation is to be present with everything, not to avoid difficult thoughts or feelings or crave or clinging to pleasant thought or pleasant feelings. When the dissociative reaction to trauma is relaxed, then the self can open to anything that is unbearable, and that's where a cry for relief is coming forward. So in conclusion, I would say reflect into your childhood, see if anything that was different that you noticed. If it happened, even childhood trauma, even it happened often, is normal, but don't normalize it, but it's not okay. It happened more than you think. So how did everything affect your behavior, and whether or not you have addressed it? If not, then you dissociate it. Then look at how your relationships are. The thing is to remember, even as you come to meditation, even if it makes you feel good, but if you do not address any of this issue, it's going to be your major obstacle in this spiritual journey. So basically, If you have issues, talk to your friends or talk to a therapist. So with that, I would like to end and transition to our meditation. So let's take your posture, be it sitting or lying down. And let's take some deep breaths. Breathe in through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Breathe in deeply all the way down to your lungs. And you notice that your stomach is expanding. Then as you breathe out, feel the air leaving your lungs. Your stomach is shrinking. Then, of course, the oxygen turns into carbon dioxide. Allow it to come out through your mouth. Just blow the air out all the way. Tell yourself to relax. Tell yourself and tell your brain that you are safe. Let go of your thoughts, thinking, planning, everything that you encounter since this morning, this past week, past month. Let it all go if you can. Once you are done, then breathe normally through your nose. Allow your body to settle. If you are sitting, check your posture again. Feel the contact between your posture and the chair or the surface of the floor against your posture. Let's start with a smile. Notice how you feel and how that feeling gives rise to the physiological sensations in your body. Then notice that your feeling and the physiological sensations fading away, disappeared. Then see what you feel next. Let's continue with the sense door practice. First, notice the environment or the room that you are in. And pay attention to the personal space surrounding your body. And use your body to feel the room temperature. With your awareness, let's check in with your mind and see how busy it is with thoughts, constantly wandering away or distracted by noise or your own thoughts. Check in with your feeling, your emotion, your mood, your attitude. Notice what you can hear in each moment. Noise, sound. With mindfulness, you don't react to anything. Your sense of seeing, smell, and taste. these three senses during meditation, they are not active since there isn't anything to trigger them. Then your sense of touch, how the clothes that you wear feel on your body. And any tension or physical pain in your body that you noticed in this moment. The sensual practice helps you to stay grounded and centered, that you can do anywhere, anytime, so you don't get distracted or feel overwhelmed when you are being triggered. Let's bring your awareness to your breath and anchor your awareness in the breath. And let's breathe for a couple minutes. Breathe in slowly, gently, and breathe out slowly, gently. If your mind wanders away, bring it back. Tell your mind, tell yourself to slow down. There's no way to go but here. Be here. Be with the breath. This is one way to relax your body and calm your nervous system. It will trigger the parasympathetic nervous system that regulates most of your internal organs. It will bring your body to a state of resting, peaceful flow. Breathe in, breathe out. Just continue to stay with your breath. Let's use this time to process the thoughts in your conscious mind. On average, we have some 50,000 thoughts a day. And a lot of those thoughts are not useful. Some could even be harmful. So let's make a conscious effort to get rid of them. Also noted that the thoughts that come up, they come up randomly, not in any order. And with your awareness, you're able to catch one thought at a time and then make your decisions. Mostly let it go. First, see if there's any negative self-talk. I hate myself. I don't like my look. I don't like my body, any of this. The negative self-talk stay in your default mode network. So flush it out and promise yourself not to repeat them. You are developing a new wholesome habit. If you don't like somebody or have a negative view of someone, certain culture, certain religion, let it go. don't add any more negativity into your conscious mind. In the past, if someone said or did anything to you that was hurtful, let it go. Let go of that person as well. And don't waste your time and mental energy thinking about fear or worrying about somebody or something. Fear of the unknown, fear of the future leads to anxiety. So let that go as well. If you have any planning, put it aside. If images of your loved ones appear, put them aside. Don't engage with them at this moment. See if there's any craving that you have, craving to feel good through your senses, traveling, eating, music, beautiful scenes. Let it all go if you can. See if there's any clinging to someone who doesn't care about you, or a relationship that is not working. Try your best to let it go, because craving and clinging could have a negative effect on your physical and mental health. If you feel stressful, then question what that stress is, how it comes about, basically who causes you to feel stressed. It could be your own thoughts. Then see if you can manage it or overcome that stress. Memories from your past, be it happy or unhappy, let it go. If you get involved with your memories, you are living in the past. Or you could use it as a source of happiness. But it involved the past. You are not in the present moment. See if there's any anger or sadness from decades ago that's still looking in the back of your mind. See if you can investigate and understand why, and then let it go. Or you can come back to it later after the meditation. This is how you purify your mind, just as you clean your house, your room, your bed, taking care of your personal hygiene. You do the same for your conscious mind, which is what we call mental hygiene. Then notice how you feel now as you let go a lot of thoughts. And with the thoughts that you let go, see if you can figure out your past thinking, your past behavior with your intention. And that is your insight. You have a better understanding of your conscious mind, of who you are today. And that's part of the goal of the meditation practice. And also based on your insight, you want to continue to do what's best and beneficial to you. That in a sense, you are becoming your own therapist. So be kind, be open, be honest, and be objective. So that in each moment you can make proper decisions for yourself, for your future. Let's bring your awareness to your body, and let's do the body scan for a few minutes. First, notice your physical energy level. Then proceed to scan your body from head to toes. See if you noticed anything different, or if your body is giving you certain signals, seeking your attention. If you noticed tension or physical pain, then pay attention to it or be present with it without questions, without judgments, with acceptance, with compassion. And see if that tension would disappear, stay the same, or become more intense. But you remain mindful. Give it your kind attention. If you are sitting, feel the contact between your posture on the chair or the surface that you are sitting on. If you are lying down, feel the contact between your body against the floor or the bed. Do it slowly, mindfully. With the body scan, you become more sensitive and more aware of any issues in your body so that you can figure out how to care for it. That, in a sense, That's how you are taking care of your physical health. Let's sit in silence for the next couple minutes. You can continue to scan your body or just focus on the breath. With your mindfulness, let's check in with your mind again and see how it is. Perhaps settled, clear, spacious, focused, less reactive, less judging, less wandering. Your feeling, your emotion, your mood, your attitude. And notice the qualities of mindfulness, concentration, patience that you just cultivated. With that, I will hand it over to Danny. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. You have no idea how much I'm willing to pay to see you in Versace right now.
I think I have a sweatshirt. I have a long sleeve in Versace that 20 years ago.
Oh, I just, with all my imagination, I still cannot.
I had a lot of hair back then, you know.
So did I. Um, at first, I didn't understand you picked this topic because last week you talked about dukkha, the first of
Noble
the
truth.
Four Noble Truths, and
Mm-hmm.
it would be very logical for you to then talk about the second
Mm-hmm.
Noble Truth, but you didn't. Instead, you took a step back and talk about disassociation. Um, so again, if one were to talk about the 12 steps to overcome addiction,
Mm-hmm.
and in a way, being overwhelmed by past trauma is another form of addiction. We just
Mm-hmm.
cannot let go.
Mm-hmm.
And the very first step is about letting go. It's about confronting, actually, not letting go. It's about confronting. It's about finally accepting that you have an issue,
Acceptance.
right? Acceptance, yeah, acceptance. So, but acceptance is not part of our DNA. It's not actually it's not survival. Survival is dissociation,
Yeah.
right? So, human beings' natural behavior after trauma, even if it's acute trauma, and not long-term trauma like you're talking about. Our first instinct, our first reaction, our first is a survival, and survival requires disassociation.
Yeah.
You know, so I think what you talk about today is actually very natural. We all do that.
We all do. That's
We
a
all do
problem.
that. Yeah, we all do that, and so it's kind of interesting that in order to get real help, following the 12 steps, for example, requires that you accept your trauma. That's the
Hmm.
first thing. Now, you mentioned that people who have suffered trauma, one form or the other, they have different behavior. And I really like the one where you says fawning is one. And it's actually the most common one
Hmm.
because freezing or avoiding, you don't see them. So, uh, but you see a lot of people that, they laugh louder than anyone else. They react, faster than anyone else to someone else's joke.
Yeah.
They run to if you need anything, they'll run to get you. That's very typical. And you mentioned how for many of the students out there, we might not have a chance to talk about Venerable De Hong's past, his childhood. So he was born in Vietnam. He was basically the first generation of Vietnamese Chinese. There were a lot of immigrants back then. This is before. Actually, your father went to Vietnam before World War II, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
After
and
World War II.
after World War II, was
Hmm.
it after Japanese surrender?
Yeah, because he was not
Okay.
he was born 1935 and he was 13 when he escaped China to Vietnam. So it was 1948 that he arrived in
Oh,
Vietnam.
okay. Okay. So it was after end of the World War II, but it was a time when there was tremendous amount of turmoil in China,
Famine.
where famines and all that. And so
Hmm.
he was not born in Vietnam. Your mom
No.
was born in Vietnam, but he was not. Yeah.
Hmm.
So typical. We invented a word, a phrase this weekend, and we call it re-anchored citizens. Re-anchored
Oh,
citizen.
really?
Now,
Okay.
this is very interesting because most people would think about immigrants who eventually become naturalized citizens, and particularly the one that are doing very well and are contributing. We think of them as people who are, on their own, decided that they would leave one place of comfort to a place of better comfort, right? But then there's another group of immigrants actually wasn't thinking about even coming to a different country. They would have been happy where they were, but because of war, because of turmoil, famine, because of all kinds of reasons, they had to leave, and they had to leave in the face of great danger
Yeah.
to themselves and to the family.
Hmm.
And then they eventually landed in a new country, and they have to re-anchor themselves and become prosperous. So that's a very interesting statement of immigrants. You and I am not. My family came not with a lot of comfort, but we weren't escaping from war. But you were, right?
Oh, yeah.
So there were a lot of people like you that had to re-anchor into a new land. And in a way, your father was like that. He was escaping famine
Yeah.
and poverty. And so he comes with a lot of traumatic experience,
Yeah.
and and you were his punching bag because
He,
you didn't have anybody protecting you. That was a problem. Is that it could have been anybody else. It could have been distributed among your siblings, but no, you were his oldest son, and you didn't have a protector. Had he just imagine had he do that to your younger sister, you would come out and protect her, but you didn't have someone to protect you.
no, he actually did to all seven of us.
All
He was
seven.
abusive to my
So
mom
he
too.
was he was equal opportunity abuser.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Okay, so it's but in any case, you said that you grew up with very little self-esteem because you were always questioning about why me, why
Yeah.
this life,
Mm-hmm.
and no one was helping you. No one was had the neighbors didn't help because that
No.
wasn't the culture. That
In
was
the
not the
Yeah.
culture.
So
Yeah,
you guys know out there in the Vietnamese culture, people would stand and watch you
they would
getting
stand
beat
and
up.
watch. Yeah, you were
Yeah.
actually entertainment for the
Yeah.
community. Look at him! Look
Yeah.
at him! So you grew up with a lot of that, and like you said, you had to react to it, deal with it, and your survival instinct is that you want to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be liked, and then I like the passage that you have where Buddha says that a journey is about finding the inner self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is actually in a way kind of related to the 12 steps as well, because in the 12 steps, in the original 12 steps, it was given up to the higher power.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Buddhism, it wasn't someone else that you give up to. You know, it wasn't a deity. It's not a deity. It's not a creator God. It's not a personal God. It is you.
It's my
It
own.
is your inner self
Yep.
that if you could somehow confront your demon and understand where it comes from. And as you said, karma, trauma is karma,
Mm-hmm.
even though we said that, let's not let trauma become a karma, but trauma is a karma. And karma is an action. It affects how you think, how you act, because and so Buddhist teaching is that, well, then you have to confront it. You have to learn how to not let your trauma become your karma,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I think you were attracted to that teaching, and eventually, after you decided that you had done sufficiently well, you did all your duties as a number one son, right?
Yep.
What more do they want? You're a master and your PhD engineering plus an MBA, you know, and
Yeah.
then you were working three jobs after you had a day job in IT, and just so that you can bring all your family over,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, and then you talk about how you were re-traumatized again after you saw your father, and he hasn't changed, and all your memory came back.
Yep.
And that's the time when you say, "Look, this is it. This is it. I got to seek my own path, right?" So I think you were attracted to Buddha's teaching, and then eventually you decided that you wanted to be a monk,
Mm-hmm.
but you didn't want to be any kind of monk. You didn't want to just live in a temple and serve the middle class,
The wealthy,
the
the wealthy
wealthy,
donors.
and the dead, or even the dead. You wanted to, because you were trying to, it was important to you to really understand. You need to find the reason for your life. Why
The
did that
meaning.
happen to you? The meaning.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah.
had to be a meaning. You couldn't
Mm-hmm.
just say, "Hey, that was it." Shit happens. You can't, because again, for your survival, you had to find the meaning. Why did that happen to me? That had someone. There has to be a reason for that. And so now you come to the very last step of the 12th step, which is to serve. And then the question was that what was the you know population
Mm-hmm.
that you can serve that would give meaning to your early childhood, your life, and so eventually you answered the calling, and of the room full of people, student sign up, but you were the only one show up,
There were
which
three.
was there
Three
were three
showed
that you
up.
show up, but first time, second time only you.
Yeah.
So then that was the new life, and that was for you more than serve a particular population, in this case is incarcerated. You were actually using the opportunity to resolve your own conflict,
Correct. My own childhood trauma.
your own child. And that is coming back to the opposite of disassociation,
Correct.
which is to accept your past and actually helping others. The last steps of the 12th step is to serve others. And you're doing exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing
Yeah.
exactly that. Now, you're coming up on the end of October, and there's a film festival in San Quentin, and you mentioned about 10 movies that are made uh, with the common topic about the incarcerated, and you are the subject of one.
Hmm.
And the name of the this movie is called Road to,
The
what's
road
the
to
name of
Dharma. The road
the
to
Road to
Dharma.
Dharma. The
Hmm.
Road to Dharma. So for those of you out there, now I cannot post the link, so it's actually on a YouTube channel. And the name of the video is a very short video. The name of the video is called The Road to Dharma. And of course, Venerable De Hong is the subject matter. And it was interesting to, well, first of all, it was amazing that he was able to gain access to the prison and was able to. Oh no, he didn't. No, he did. He
Yeah,
did.
the
He
women's
actually
prison.
filmed. He filmed when you were in the female prison,
Yeah. Hmm.
and then
And the
there was
women.
something else that was outside the prison. These are all the returned citizens,
Correct.
and they were talking about you,
Hmm.
and I think the thing that I remember was that they were very appreciative of what you do because you did not judge. That was their word. That you weren't there to judge them. You weren't there, basically force feeding them some kind of dogma theory or whatever. You were there. You were very honest. You were there. In fact, you said yourself that you are very appreciative of them. You're very grateful of them because you are learning from them.
Yeah,
And so it was a case of mutual healing by
on both sides.
doing exactly the opposite of disassociation,
Hmm.
which is
Correct.
to accept and confront
Yeah.
your past trauma.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing about what I did. I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning, but eventually, whoever that came to me, I let them be. I let them come to me. I let them share their experiences. I never asked them what they did or what happened. And then I also, as I offer mindfulness and, the Buddha's teaching, I never had any rituals. I never asked them to convert, because people inside the prison, they are at the most vulnerable position. And they could convert, I could do it, but I never did that. And that's the one thing that I have, that people come to me, because most of the folks who come to my visit are not Buddhist, but they accept it. They accept the Buddha's teaching, they practice meditation, and that's what matters, and that helped them.
Yeah, and it's basically, not putting words in their mouth, but they basically felt that you were authentic.
I am.
That
I was.
you're authentic, and that you were able to relate to them. And most important of all is that you weren't judging them, and you're
Hmm.
not going to use their openness and their honesty against them.
Yeah.
Now that takes a
Mhm.
lot of work.
Oh yeah.
That
And
takes a
I
lot of
speak
work.
at that
Yeah,
level.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So I think to kind of again, I didn't understand the importance of today's topic, but now I do, because most of us who suffer from trauma one way or the other, for our own protection, for our own survival, we have to build this wall to
Put
protect
on a
ourselves,
mask
put on the mask,
and go on.
um,
Hmm.
and go on. This is the only way we can survive. And so, um, by not accepting our past, then we cannot confront our past. And then, ironically, by avoiding a past, we become enslaved to a past,
Yeah.
right? And so dukkha and disassociation is exactly that. It's speaking about that. It's the entry to the 12 steps.
Hmm.
Doing learning how not to disassociate is the entry for the first step. you know so I thank you very much for today's topic, today's discussion. I'm sure everyone out there feel the same way. You actually got a total donation of $15. That's not enough to buy you a new Versace yet. A long way from that, but that's probably more money you ever made as a monk.
Yeah. Hmm.
per hour.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll collect all that. Okay, we'll
Thank
collect all
you.
that at the end of the year, do the accounting that we always do, and then also typically there are other students who are willing to put up the matching fund, so we'll do all that at the end of the year. Okay, so
Thank
thanks
you.
again for all the donations. Um, it we like it, when people appreciate what we do. We like it. It's you can
Super.
say, well, it's just who we are, like
It
I
feels
talk about
good.
the survival, and then I talk about the ego, and it's just, we're human. We
Hmm.
like it. Okay, so with that, I'll turn off all the outside first. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. So this is the first Tuesday,
August 18.
August 16th. So we'll be back on August 16th. Okay, put that on your calendar. All right, and next time prepare a whole bunch of questions. Okay, let me turn off one at a time.